Welcome to my garage and my first video, which is unplanned, unscripted, and probably going to go poorly. So, I have this Atlas R-300 table-mounted sewing machine. I think they were also sold under Nelco or something like that. My mother had picked it up at a garage sale years ago, didn't know about it, was visiting, and she said, "Oh hey, I have this old sewing machine, do you want to take a look at it?" So it was at the time, locked up, and I have since unlocked it, but it's going to need a lot more work to make it run more smoothly. But I'll show what my troubleshooting process was and how I found what the issue was. Smooth transitions between shots? Nah, we don't need those. So at the time that I first started messing with it, it was locked up. It would only move about an inch either way. And the electric motor was working, would just not drive this. So to get a look how this thing works, we'll first remove the top. We'll see that there is a crankshaft, pretty much a crankshaft, running through the top here, and every other little piece of this machine that, well, it operates off of this crankshaft. And at the time it would only move about this much, and I could not get it to budge. So what I had first thought was that somewhere in this there had been a piece of fiber or something that got jammed somewhere, where there was some kind of mechanical blockage, and it actually turned out not to be that, interestingly. So, if you look at the top here, apart from this main shaft, the stuff in here, there are two kind of little pistons coming off of this, which I don't know if they're visible or not. And those little I hit the camera. Those little pistons operate these sort of arms that, apart from other things, move little, I think they're called stitching dogs, as well as control the stitch distance through this here. And it's going to get a lot less complicated in a second because the fix was not a complicated one. So first I'll show what the particular issue was on this one, then I'll walk through whatever troubleshooting I would do if that wasn't the issue. So these different linkages here, which are all driven off these two little pistons off the main shaft, are held in place by these pins and these bolts. And you can see they're both notched, like for a flathead screwdriver, but only these bolts here unscrew. And they unscrew all the way. But these pins should be lubricated and cleaned that hold these linkages in place. You can see here, here, here. And if they're not properly adjusted, it'll be off. Or if they're loose, it'll kind of clack around. Or if they're too tightly pinned in, or the lubricant has dried up, then it just might not move at all, which is what the cause was on this one. So I just kind of adjust these by hand until it smoothly runs, and they're just tight enough, they hold it in place well, lubricated, but they're not so tight they prevent it from spinning. And then tighten them down all the way, making sure that when you tighten it, you don't move that pin out of position. So next I'll walk through how I would troubleshoot it if that wasn't the issue. So how I would troubleshoot this. So we start at the source. The electric motor works, we know that. It drives this main crank that everything else is attached to in some way. So firstly, anywhere metal's touching metal, you want to make sure it's lubricated. It looks like this is intended for oil. Got this hole here, this hole here. So everywhere metal touches metal and moves around, lubricate that, either with like rim oil or I wouldn't use WD-40 unless something is rusted and you're trying to get it to penetrate and break free. But lubricate every point that metal is touching metal and try to work it. I would honestly remove the belt if you're doing this a lot. But as you oil each point that metal's touching and work it around, that oil will penetrate or lubricate and hopefully unstick it. The big thing is you just trace it. It's heavy. You just trace this from the source out and lubricate every point metal's touching metal, and look for any deformity. Any bent piece will gum it up, and because every single little thing on this is mechanical and all runs off this main shaft, then any single part of the system could potentially gum the entire thing up. So you just start from the source. As it goes out, anywhere that metal moves and touches metal, lubricate it, and look for anything bent. So my allergies were pretty bad when I was recording this, so I'll clarify a few things if I was kind of rambling. So firstly, you should be cleaning any dirt from the moving parts of the machine before you troubleshoot it. Secondly, as you work out from the source looking for which part is stuck, you might not be able to tell which one is because they're all kind of meshed together. So what you might do if you're comfortable is disconnect individual parts from the system to see if they're what's keeping it locked up. If something looks rusted, you can apply some WD-40 to it. It might penetrate and unlock it, but I'd come back later and I'd oil it with some regular oil. Lastly, don't go overboard in the oil, as it's going to attract dust, and I didn't really show me cleaning it up because I had more work to do, but do clean up any excess oil. And finally, don't try to force the mechanism when you're working it. If it's not moving after it's been oiled and you've looked it over, then there's probably still a problem somewhere. You don't want to bend apart and make it permanent. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video is helpful.